right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook Sports. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I'm very excited to be joined by a special guest here. He is the King of Thornton himself, Jeff Morton. Jeff, thank you so much, man, for tuning in and for hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it. I think you have, if I show our display names here, I think you've got the King as your display name, and I wanted to make sure that everybody saw that one. That one's pretty funny. How are you doing, man? Thank you so much for hopping on.
I am fantastic. Hope everyone who's watching this is having a good night. And yeah, I got the King on here, and I don't know. I must have done something with StreamYard before because I don't ever remember typing that on there. But I was like, I'm just going to leave this.
No, I love it. Let me let the people know that we are live. If you are in the chat right now, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun to be able to do this. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube, Mile High Sports. And if you're listening on the audio side, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on all of that. But I wanted to get on Jeff. We were talking earlier today, and then Hunter Tyson just decided that he wanted to go off and do some crazy shit. I don't like, I know we were talking about this before, like you live a healthy lifestyle and have decided, I don't feel the need to take in the fourth game of Summer League today. And that was perfectly fine. And I think everybody else here is completely understanding of that. But I did want to just touch on that before we get into everything here. Hunter Tyson just kicked ass tonight. Like he had 31 points on 11 of 13 from the field and 7 of 9 from 3 in 27 minutes. Listen to this. He was a plus 43 in 27 minutes. Jeff, that's a pretty good number. That is I don't think I've ever seen that before in a summer league game.
He does, since he looks like he's 35, I would say that he has the perfect middle-aged man game.
Yeah.
And especially in summer league where you can chuck a lot of threes and there's not a lot of organization, I'm sure that's absolutely perfect for Hunter Tyson.
He's killing it, man. Like some of the shots that he was making tonight were, I kid you not, insane shots that him moving off, like just all dribbling into threes as a forward, as just somebody like a Michael Porter Jr. basically. Like he got some of those comparisons on the timeline tonight, and then somebody said, I'm not going to name names, that he was Michael Porter with all the vertebrae intact, and that was pretty visceral. I'm not going to lie, but it was an absolutely unbelievable shooting display from Hunter Tyson. And he was playing good defense too, which I did not expect from him. And I wanted to make sure to shout him out. He's not going to be like the massive focus of today's podcast because I just wanted to be able to have you on and talk about this. But 31 points is crazy in 26, 27 minutes, however much he played. And I know the comments are going wild for it. Hunter Tyson is awesome. And I guys, when I put the title down, I wasn't actually asking if Hunter is the greatest player of all time. This is what you call an SEO title. This is what you call getting people to click on the video. But
now we're going to be getting a bunch of people from Clemson in on this video who are very enthusiastic about Hunter Tyson. It's what's going to happen. And it's going to be look, folks, I mean, I understand the enthusiasm. Hey, when I see guys who are follically challenged, I think, man, I can relate to this person. And if only I was 6'11", I would be able to do the things that maybe this person would, or maybe I wouldn't. Who knows? But I appreciate the swag.
Oh yeah, and one of the good things about having you on tonight is you get to remind everybody about the star of 2002's Summer League. If you want to remind the people.
Yes, Nicholas Skidashvili was the MVP of the 2003 Summer League. The year Carmelo Anthony was drafted, and he had been in the league for a year, and that was his second Summer League, and that's why I don't pay attention to Summer League.
And it's a great point, because that's basically 20 years. I mean, it's 20 years to the day basically that Skeetus was just dominating and turned out to be one of the biggest busts in NBA history, or at least for Nuggets history, that's for sure.
The real El
And
Busto.
yeah, exactly. Not Ray LaFriends. That's a different one right there.
Yes.
But there's plenty of names I think you could pull out from Denver Nuggets drafting lore. But it is kind of cool to see Denver. I mean, I don't know what Hunter Tyson's going to be at the NBA level. I compared him to George Niang, excuse me. I keep calling him Georges because that's how his name is spelled. But I was told on a podcast like on my own podcast, that it is George Niang. Just like a movement stretch four, kind of like not the most athletic guy, but then he had this awesome baseline dunk today where he just threw it down, and he looks pretty good, and he's dribbling, like taking guys off the dribble, hitting post fadeaways. But it is just really, really cool to see. But no, I'm really happy to see. It just seems like Calvin Booth keeps hitting in for a lot of these guys, and whether it's Christian Braun or Peyton Watson from last year, or if it's going to be Hunter Tyson or Jalen Pickett or even Julian Strawther, who had some good plays in today's game, then there's maybe this is a good offseason for Denver, even though I don't think a lot of people feel that way.
Someone just said my mic is fading. Is it? Can you hear me all right?
I heard you. There was a couple of times where it was like kind of fading out, but that was before. Now you're good.
Oh, good. Well, maybe I will shout into the mic and people could be able to hear me, because I'm not as people who have heard my podcast know, this is my tone. I am like an NPR radio person. It's like I am announcing fresh air on NPR. So anyway, as far as Calvin Booth goes, I think the Nuggets are a bit high on their own supply, a bit. That's the best way I would put it. They are overly confident in their rookies. I think the fact they are very enthusiastic about older rookies like Pickett, like Tyson, and I understand, but they, as people have been pointing out nationally, it didn't really replace Bruce Brown. They didn't even try. So it's kind of like, this is going to be a new team coming into the year. I mean, even with the guys in the starting lineup, it's just that the team's going to look a little different, going to be a lot younger. So that's kind of where my mind is on that.
Yeah, so let's talk about it then. I think probably the most important thing for people to remember about this Nuggets group is that they just didn't have a lot of resources to be able to throw it this offseason. Mm-hmm. And the way that Calvin Booth decided to reorient those resources with a couple of trades that he made was he decided, hey, we're going to get 3 quality rookies that we believe can contribute sooner rather than later. And that's always a dangerous game to play, just because you don't know if any rookie is going to be good, let alone helpful. And that's going to be at least an interesting thing for a championship caliber team, or at least a team with championship aspirations like Denver. You just won the title. Bruce Brown was a very, very big piece of this team. And now you're going to rely on Jalen Pickett and Colin Gillespie and Hunter Tyson and Julian Strawther. And I don't think that they're actually going to rely on those guys. I think that the 3 names that I keep circling back to and will probably keep pushing over the course of this upcoming season are Christian Braun, Peyton Watson, and Zeke Naji as these younger guys that I know Christian contributed, but I think there's another level that he can get to, obviously. And then Peyton Watson didn't really contribute, and Zeke Naji in the playoffs didn't really contribute. So can you find more contributions from those guys? And I think that this particular way that they approach this offseason is a belief that those guys can do more. That's the way that I took this, and that I see the draft picks that they made as like third stringers rather than second stringers,
Well, their approach to the off-season free agency. Now, I don't know if you heard Nate Duncan and John Hollinger talking about Reggie Jackson and their view of it?
Yeah, I saw a graphic that came, or some tweet that came out, that it was like an extension of
Yeah.
the buyout deal, which not surprising. I posited that on a previous podcast too.
Yeah. And I was going to mention that you had mentioned that, and sometimes there's just the way things work in the NBA, and there's a cost of doing business. I wonder if Bruce Brown had come back, if that contract would have been there. I mean, that's just despite whatever quid pro quo may have been implicitly there. I don't know necessarily if they would have done that. This is what I want to emphasize to people. Despite what they say, there is no hard cap in this league. There's restrictions when you go into the second apron, but there's no hard cap. The floor is actually harder than the second apron. The floor is the best way to put this is that there is not a single team that wants to be docked revenue sharing money for going under the floor, because it just what this. I mean, I'm not going to get. I'm sorry, I could get really wonky on the CBA that just came out, but the best way to put this is that they made the floor harder than they made the second apron. And that is why we saw Bruce Brown get $20 million for 1 year and a player or a team option in the second. They're trying to hit the cap floor. And so that's why you see ridiculous contracts like Bruce Brown bought. The point I'm making about this is that, yes, the Nuggets had some restrictions, but they're still not in the second apron. And it's not as if they're, for all intents and purposes, there's not any indication they even tried to bring a veteran in. So,
well, hey, I will mention that I think that Justin Holiday is a better veteran than a lot of people realize. Like, is he going to be a guaranteed rotation player? No. You hope that a guy like Peyton Watson improves beyond that. But in terms of like an actual better ball handler than a guy like Reggie Jackson, which I think is what you're talking about here, I do agree. I think that they decided that Reggie was going to be the guy. That was the intention the entire way. And then when you start thinking about it, okay, do you want to get somebody in front of Christian Brown? No. Do you want to get somebody in front of Peyton Watson? That's what Calvin Booth was going through. And I think that this is where the dangerous part of believing in your own draft picks and getting high off your own supply is what I think you were talking about here. Mm-hmm. It's like, can you see the forest through the trees? And like, do you actually believe that this player is going to be the right guy for the right job at the end of the year? I don't know. I think it's a great question.
Let me throw this out there, because I think this is part of this whole, we're talking about these picks and we're talking about what they're doing right now to get older players supplementing on the back end of the roster to fill in gaps and stuff like that. The Peyton Watson one is the one this is riding on. The entire thing is hinging on very specifically Peyton Watson, because we've seen what Christian Brown can do. Obviously, there's the baseline there that we understand that Christian Brown could do. Peyton Watson, though, he played 4 games with substantial minutes, and he showed some flashes, but his offensive game is still really rough. And what they want him to do, I'm still trying to get into my head what they want him to do, because he's a kind of a small forward. So are they wanting him to back up Mike? Are they trying to have him back up Christian Brown? I still don't know where they envision Peyton Watson resting within this grand scheme of things. And you're someone who is closer to the team than I am. Where do you think they see Peyton Watson?
I think they see him as their backup 3, backup 4 option. Maybe not even somebody who's more of a backup 2. I know that they want positional size. And so you want somebody who can play the 3 that is a bigger, athletic, versatile, rangy wing. And I think that Peyton Watson kind of projects like that, where He's this 6'8", 215-pound wing who's got a 7-foot wingspan and jumps out of the gym, chases down blocks, things like that, and has a little bit of an off the bounce game, and then can do some other stuff. But I think they see him as a Michael Porter Jr. backup. I think they see Christian Braun as the backup 2 and Reggie Jackson as the backup 1. And Justin Holiday will fit into that at some place. But let's say you want another veteran on the court who can space the floor a little bit better than Peyton Watson, but you want to keep Peyton Watson on the floor. Maybe decide, we don't need Vlatko in this lineup, in this backup 4 spot. And so you slide Peyton Watson to the 4. You play Justin Holiday and Christian Braun together on the wings, and then you have Reggie run things. Or you could do the same thing with Jamal Murray playing next to somebody like a Reggie Jackson, and you go 2 point guards, or you go Michael Porter staggering with the second unit, and then you play Peyton Watson next to him. He can be the defensive counterpart to Michael Porter as the offensive guy. So I think there are ways that they can do it, but even more than last year, I think this is going to be a very interesting season for Michael Malone, where you have 6 guys that you believe in if you're Michael Malone from this past season. You had the 5 starters and Bruce Brown for much of the season, right. And Christian Braun was still a mystery, and Reggie Jackson came in, and Bruce Brown or Bones Highland went out very quickly. And you have a lot of guys that I think, you could go with Jeff Green, you could go with Zeke Naji, you could go with DeAndre Jordan, you could go with Thomas Bryant, Vlatko, guys like that. I think this year, even more than this past championship season, you're just going to mix and match the bench and see who's healthy and be okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never seen a championship team go deliberately young before. This is the
all right. I've got one. What about the Golden State Warriors this last year?
That's I brought this up on my podcast. I mean, they abandoned that 2 timelines thing because
very quickly
didn't work. And the only way it works is if they are thinking. Well, I know what the Nuggets are thinking because they've told me this years ago. Is they envision themselves like the San Antonio Spurs. Okay. And the only way it works is if you have Tim Duncan playing for 20 years. Really, that is the crux of the issue. You have to have Bruce. You have to have Tim Duncan playing for 20 years.
They've got a good facsimile.
Yeah. There's a problem. I don't know if Nikola Jokic will get to another contract beyond this one.
He might not. And that's an interesting point that we've talked about before. And like who knows? And I don't know if you can game plan for that or not.
No.
But I think Jokic, he's jumping off of cliffs in Serbia, doing some fun kayaking and canoeing and things like that. So I don't know what it's ultimately going to look like with him, but Peyton Watson is your one lottery ticket among all of the older veteran or older rookies that they've drafted. Like Christian Braun, older rookie, not Ismail Kamagate or anybody like that, but these other 3 guys, Hunter Tyson, Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, these are your geriatric veteran rookies that you're bringing in as best as you can and hoping that they can be ready sooner rather than later at a cheap price. But I know what you're trying to say in terms of maximizing the time that Jokic is actually here. I don't know if they can approach it that way though. Like, I mean, they can, and they probably should, but Bruce is like that was a CBA thing, not necessarily a we're unwilling to pay you kind of thing.
No. That I'm not saying that because they weren't going to pay Bruce Brown $20 million, but they were going to try to pay him $7 million and then pay him the mid-level afterwards.
Yeah. Right.
Which you're asking a player to basically say, no, trust us, and players just inherently don't trust like that.
Yeah, so, I also just don't blame him at all for taking the guaranteed money, and I don't blame the Nuggets for the way that they handled it either. Like, it just was never going to happen.
2 for $45 million. I mean, even though the second year is a team amp option, that's hard to pass up for a guy who'd only made $16 million in his career. up to that point only. By the way, I would love $16 million. But both of us would like that. But I mean, that's not what I'm talking about, because I think I said that on my podcast that the Nuggets could have envisioned Bruce Brown leaving, and they probably should have assumed he was leaving. I think that when I saw Seth Curry sign for less than Reggie Jackson, I was like, did they even try? I mean, not him specifically, but I'm like, did they even look at anyone else and any other veteran? And that's what got me thinking. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum here, by the way, because the Nuggets are going to be good next year, really, if not great. It's just I am perplexed at some of the reasonings that they've had, and specifically the faith in certain rookies for a championship squad is where I can't go from where my brain is to where I'm at right now, I guess is where I'm at.
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing to remember with this is that, like you said about the Nate Duncan, John Hollinger piece of this, that like there was already some stuff that was in the woodwork that they knew they were going to give. And if you believe in the group that you have, then it's probably not worth going after the ring chasing veterans. Or maybe you're promising minutes already to some of the guys that you're talking about, and maybe just believe that Christian Braun, hey, you're a better player than Eric Gordon, or you're a better player than Seth Curry or somebody like that, and we would rather play you. I think the real delineating factor here is Reggie Jackson and the promise that they made. This is where being a team that promises things and being a good organization that is willing to go the extra mile for various agents and various interactions is, like, it's both good and bad. And I'm curious to see whether that helps them or hurts them. But again, it's hard for me to really fight it because they won a title, and they are playing with house money right now, fortunately.
Well, look, I mean, that the Nuggets won their first title in their team history as of a month ago. And it's hard to look at that result and think anything other than it was great. We could make an argument, and I could make a convincing argument that this was mostly Tim Connolly's team and somewhat Calvin Booth's team. This is now fully Calvin Booth's team. I think with them, the more rookies you get into the equation, you are putting your stamp, for better or worse or indifferent or whatever. You're putting your stamp on this team. So as of this year, I think this is fully Calvin Booth's squad. And I'm curious to see his vision of it, because I've been struggling to identify with it, because when I think of like having the window, I think maximizing the window, and I don't necessarily think the Nuggets right now are maximizing the window. But at the same time, the philosophy could be we got to stretch this out as long as possible. And the way we do that is to bring in cheap rookie contracts who are with these aged rookies on the back end. You know, he could be thinking that.
Maybe. And I do think that it has some foresight in it, but you have to get the moves right, or you have to get at least one or two of them right. Like nobody's going to ask Calvin Booth to draft three late first, early second round picks and hit on all three of them. But it was a big risk for him to take and for him to go that way. Let me ask you this, because you prompted my brain a little bit.
Yep.
You've been a Nuggets fan for longer than just about any of us. Yeah. I'm curious what the feeling was like for you, and how you're feeling about the championship a month after it happened.
Oh, interesting question. I felt better when they beat the Lakers than I did when they beat the Heat.
It's very cathartic, right?
I was talking to my friend Tim Miller about this, and he and I were texting about how it was a weird feeling when they beat the. I was very, very, very happy when they beat the Heat, but it was like I felt that I should have been more happy, and it was a weird feeling because I was extremely happy when they beat the Lakers.
Yeah.
And I think there was an anticlimactic thing to having them play the Heat in the finals, with due respect to a great organization in the Heat, Heat culture hashtag. Um, but
Nice.
but there is a kind of the best way to put this. There was an anticlimax to the finals that I think I think if the Nuggets would have played Boston, that feeling maybe not would have matched the Lakers, but it would have been bigger than it was this particular Heat team. So that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, like I felt great that they won the title. I mean, I'm not trying to obscure that. But my feeling when they beat the Lakers was far, far better than when they beat the Heat. And I that's one of those things. It's interesting you bring that up because I've been thinking about that this entire offseason as to why my brain worked that way, and it's maybe because it's the torture thing, as you pointed out. It could be that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm getting at with this. I think the Nuggets fans have been conditioned in a lot of ways to move on to the next thing because the good thing isn't going to happen to us. And in a lot of ways, we didn't really know how to act and didn't really necessarily know how to respond to that kind of a high, an emotional high, especially after the one that you get from the Lakers, because they're the big bad. They're the giant that I think everybody was really hoping to get through. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see what this upcoming season feels like as well, because just kind of juxtaposing that with after you've already climbed the mountaintop and how players are motivated, how coaches are motivated, what's the next thing. And there's a lot of human nature aspect to this that isn't just with the players, but it's also with the fan base. And like, what do Nuggets fans have to hold their hats on now that the ultimate deed is actually done, I think is really, really interesting. And I figure just getting your perspective on it makes a lot of sense just while we're here.
Well, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, how long have you been a Nuggets fan? It's about 10 years for you now, right?
I've started being an actual fan like in 2009.
2009. So like the Western Conference Finals.
Like 14, 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy that's short, actually. That's like when you say it that long, like how you've been a fan since the 90s?
No, 1987.
Wow.
I was 10, and I'm old.
Yeah, you are.
So I was 10, and that was my first. That 54 win Nuggets team in 87-88 was my team. And yeah, so I think that's 36 years ago now.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Insane to think about now. I think about it. Jeez. But anyway, yeah.
But it's rewarding, and so that's where I'm kind of getting at is especially for you, like the feeling of the reward wasn't about the NBA Finals for you. Then it was about the conference finals and getting over the top of that mountain.
I think I said it several times before on Twitter and in other places. It was like slaying the dragon. You had to slay the dragon, and the dragon were the Lakers. And it wasn't LeBron. It wasn't Anthony Davis. It was the Lakers. And getting over that hump was not necessarily cathartic, but it was euphoric to have the boogeyman finally get. I mean, because that was the 7th or 8th time they played them in the playoffs. I think 7th.
I think so.
And
I think it's 8th. I think they're 0-7 prior to that.
Yeah. So getting finally beating them since 1979 when they first played them. I was 1 when they played them. So it's just like, yeah. I mean, in the playoffs, it was great. And then, like I said, it was just the Heat. It was great. It was a great series. The Heat won a game and all that stuff. But it's just the Lakers was the one that just meant more to me. And it was weird how it just got placed in this. It's weird to think about. I'm still bugged out about how I was more happy when they beat the Lakers than when they actually won the title.
I don't think that's an abnormal feeling, though. I really don't. I think that a lot of people share that sentiment, and it's good to be able to talk about it because there's a lot of people that feel that same way, and I sort of feel that same way too. About man, it was because I was in the building for both of those wins for Game 4 against the Lakers in crypto, and then I was in the building for Game 5, and I gotta tell you, the shots that Nikola was hitting in Game 4, just crushing souls against the Lakers in that game. It was
the heaves. It was
unbelievable. It's like when people think about the most iconic shots, I really do think that shot that he hit over Anthony Davis is going to be up there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like when you talk about era-defining shots and the types of shots that you hit that define a player, that's going to be one for Nikola. So I look forward to that. It's been really cool to be able to see that. And I think maybe it's because of that it had that kind of moment where the Miami series didn't really, and it was kind of almost a formality that Denver won that one because they were so clearly the better team. But I don't know. Like it is interesting to think about. But either way, hey, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about streaming with you. I want to talk about my favorite show, Ted Lasso, and I want to hear about your favorite shows and some of the things that you've been going to. But first, this podcast, as you know, everybody, it's brought to you by our good friends over at Superbook. Here we are changing the game. Help your bets stay hot this summer at Superbook Sports, the most trusted name in sports gambling with a direct line to Las Vegas. All you got to do is enter the promo code MILEHIGH, and they will you'll score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, Superbook will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code MILEHIGH. Download the Superbook Sports app, enter the promo code, and you will get $250 courtesy of Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 and make sure to visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. We'll be right back, everybody, on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here, joined by my guy, Jeff Morton, the King of Thornton himself. We've told that story a number of times, how you gave yourself that nickname, which I love.
Well, no, that was Nate Timmons.
Oh, was it Nate Timmons who gave it to you? Okay, okay.
Timmons. It was from CSG.
And was that just the intro clip? That's always what you wanted to do?
It was coming all the way down from Thornton. It's the king himself, Jeff Morton.
It's a classic opener.
Are there people here who have never heard Nate Timmons?
There might be. It wouldn't surprise me, actually. Like if you're in the comments, let us know if you've actually heard Nate Timmons' voice before, and if you know who he is, because I would not be here today without Nate Timmons. Jeff would not be here today without Nate Timmons, and I think that's a very important aspect of this. So shout out to Nate, and we appreciate you, buddy, for everything that you've done.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about streaming with you. You remember last year, during the last offseason, we had a fun conversation about a very fun show. You want to remind the people what we talked about? It was great.
What did we talk about? We talked about movies?
We talked about the Jeff Bridges show.
Oh, yeah. The old man.
The old man. Which you talking about yourself as an old man lately, so I'm not surprised that one came up and that it interested both of us. But we basically did like a book club for that series and then reviewed it. It was great.
I was like, oh man, did you watch the whole series?
I think I just watched the first season, and actually no, I'm not trying to remember. I'm trying to remember where I picked up off of. I don't know. Did they come out with another season? Because I just I remember enjoying it a lot, and I absolutely enjoyed the first season. Are they? How many seasons are there?
Just one.
Okay. Well then, yeah, I did. Yeah, it was great. Thanks for making me look like a loser, Jeff. What are you doing here?
apologize for,
Yeah.
for asking you about the series we talked about. We'll move on to Ted Lasso because
No,
it
it's
sounds
okay.
like
So I just want to talk. So this is my favorite television show of all time. For a variety of reasons, and I'm going to ask you about your favorite shows as well. But I just I think you've watched Ted Lasso before, correct? I just want to confirm and make sure.
I've seen one episode.
Wow!
It was too positive for me.
Oh my god, Jeff! This is the most emotionally rewarding show I've ever watched in my entire life.
On Apple Plus.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I know it's there are so many different streaming services, but this one I got it. Like my mom and I watched this show. That's how we've connected over the course of these last couple of years.
I get the feeling that my rampant Gen X cynicism is probably doesn't jive with your sensibilities, my friend. Because what I like tends to be a little more wrought with not cynicism, but a touch of angst, I guess is the best way to put it.
Oh, that's true. That's just who you are. That's your type. And that's okay.
That's me to a core. It's what it is.
It really is.
So what do you have things that like you I mean, you talk about Ted Lasso. Is there anything else that you're liking that is like must watch TV for you?
Right now, no. So there's the Secret Invasion Marvel show that's going right now. And I haven't been able to latch onto it because I don't find it super compelling. There's a lot of the new Marvel stuff, and I've talked about the Marvel shows before. I think they started out with some good ones, but ever since I think it's gone down a little bit of a hill here. Now I think to me it's just like it's very tough to. It's tough to find a good one sometimes because so much of these shows are trying to pump out new seasons of everything that they've done. And rather than have a coherent plan in seasons 2, 3, and 4, they are just attaching on after having a successful first season, which that's just how the streaming business works now. Ross, my little brother, he and I had enjoyed a series called Alice in Borderland. Although that was one where it's a Korean show. It's like I'd probably, or is it Japanese? It's one of those. No, it's it's an equivalent of Squid Game. But probably just it's good. You have to suspend all reality, which for obvious reasons you have to suspend all reality. But I do think that's one that I've enjoyed. But in terms of other ones, I haven't been able to latch onto anything too strongly. But Ted Lasso is the one that I really have. And I know that's why you're asking the questions. Like, I don't know if I necessarily have a specific type. I have a type for audiobooks. And I just like fantasy audiobooks where I could just like, hey, take your mind somewhere else. But for shows, it's a bunch of different things.
Well, have you read, speaking of books, have you read Chris Herring's book, Blood in the Garden?
I haven't yet. I generally stay away from sports books.
Really?
Which you would think that I would be all over stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I will get around to reading it at some point. I know that's your era. Like the 90s Knicks are your era. That's the time where you probably feel the strongest about the NBA.
Oh, yeah. No. Now, that was one of my favorite teams is the 90s Knicks. Because I'm a contrarian at heart, and I didn't like the Bulls. That's right. That's the God's honest truth. So I latched on to the 90s New York Knicks and their thuggish, we're going to murder you when you come into the lane behavior.
That sounds about right.
That was my thing. But it's going back to series. I mentioned this on Twitter. I don't know if you saw my tweet.
Yeah,
I'm not into reality shows, but there's this British show called Grand Designs, where these people make these ridiculous houses. I mean, each one of these houses are absolutely dumb.
Yeah.
And they always exceed their budget. They're always about to go bankrupt. And the host of this program mercilessly mocks these people while they're going through this. And it is so good.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
because he does it like really, really like subtly and very British. Okay.
Yeah.
And I cannot get enough. And my dad, he will see me watching this show and he was like, this is the stupidest thing. I'm like, I can't get enough of this. These people are dumb. And this guy's like letting them know how dumb they are. The entire process of these houses being built. It's like crack.
That's
like crack.
hilarious.
I can't get enough of it.
That's also your personality to a T. Just like a sarcastic, dry humor. Like I can't believe the dumbness around me, and I love to hear somebody else call it out too. That's very Jeff. I love that. No, that's completely fair.
There's a show that was on MGM, which used to be Max.
Yeah.
Called Pennyworth. That I really
like the Batman, right?
Yeah.
I
really enjoyed Pennyworth, and I think it's on HBO now. I think their new season's on HBO. Well, who knows, because the actors went out and the writers are currently on strike. So
fair.
So who knows what we're getting. And there's another one I enjoyed on Apple called Invasion. The first episode had Sam Neill in it. I love Sam Neill. And what else do I like? I like a lot. I watch a bunch of different things. There's a show called Endeavor that is really good. It's kind of a mystery thing. I like a lot of mysteries.
Mysteries are good.
Yeah.
Mysteries are like. Did you like going away from? I guess we're still in the streaming realm. The ones with Daniel Craig, like the new like Glass Onion was the second movie there.
Yeah.
What was the first one of that? Knives Out.
Knives Out. I was going to say Noises Off, but that was a different movie.
No, that's just how you listen to most of your TV shows.
Right.
No, I like those are good. Those are the kinds of mysteries that I also like. Where it's very rare that you get a good mystery that is well thought out and put together here. But
Ryan Johnson,
oh yeah,
guy who directed
Star Wars.
It's Star Wars, and there's a movie there's a movie I can recommend. The first ever movie he directed was a movie called Brick.
Yeah.
And it is, anyone who's in the chat who hasn't seen it, it is really, really good. It is really
Love
good. It. I think I suggest anyone who's into, it's like a noir, like a 40s noir with a detective and not a detective but a private eye, a hard-boiled thing, but it's all high schoolers and they all talk like they're in the 40s, and it's set in modern times, and it is unbelievable. It's so good.
Okay, I'll have to put it on the list. That is a good one right there. I want to ask you about 3. You're probably not a Witcher fan like that. I don't really put you down as a fan of the Witcher series. Oh,
my dad loves The Witcher. I and my brother John does, but I wasn't that a game? Is it Witcher?
Yeah. It was a video game series that they've now converted into a Netflix series with.
Okay, that's why it was familiar to me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like I haven't seen season 3 yet. Season 1 of it was great. Season 2 was pretty blah. Season 3, I've heard people have some complaints, so it's too bad that one kind of has faded. But there are so many good kind of video game adaptations that people can make of different things that they just haven't been able to do. I don't know why it's so difficult. But two more. The White Lotus and Succession. Two very similar shows in different ways, in my opinion.
Yes, White Lotus is too Gen Z for me, but Succession's great. Succession, was great. I guess it just ended, but
I'm only through season 1, basically.
Oh man, I don't know if four had really high peaks and really low lows as far as consistency of the show goes, but it was a very satisfying series. The Bear is another one.
I've heard a lot of people talking about it. That's on Hulu.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
Okay, I'll have to try to check that one out too. Everybody's just going gaga for it, so might as well do it.
Jamie Lee Curtis was in is a recurring character.
Speaking of Glass Onion,
right. Let's see what else. But there's a bunch that there's this one called was it Roderick the Vampire on Hulu.
Roderick the Vampire.
Roderick, I think it's called.
I certainly haven't heard of that one.
And it's got the guy from the Spider-Man movies, the Peter Parker's friend.
Nate? Why is Nate coming to mind?
I don't know.
Ned.
Yeah, the guy who played Ned.
Okay.
And it's really funny. It's not funny. It's really well done. I recommend that. I'm good on. There's series that I've seen that are very Jeff's. Like they did a War of the Worlds series on MGM,
right?
And it's got Gabriel Byrne in it. It's very, very European, but it's also really good, and it's hard to explain that how good it is. Man, I'm sorry, I'm going off here.
Oh, it's fine. You're good.
I could give you an entire list of shows.
Well, no, that's what I'm hoping for. This is actually the secret reason why I'm doing this podcast. Is I just need my new watch recommendations for this offseason.
Well, I could fill them up. Animal Control. That's a good one. That's on Hulu. Man, ton. Depends on what streaming apps you got.
I don't have Hulu. I've got Max. I've got Netflix. I've got Prime. There are some okay ones. Like I think I've got Apple TV Plus from my. I just go watch with my mom. Like that's how that's why we've done Ted Lasso and together. Is I've really enjoyed that, and we just watched the episode where. Ironically enough, Colin, one of the players, comes out as gay in front of his team, and I think it's just such a rewarding show in how they attack real life situations that it's really struck a chord with me from like how much it makes me feel stuff, which that I don't really know how to explain it, especially for somebody who's only watched one episode, but like I really do recommend it. That like if anybody is actually looking for a sports show to watch that is like, okay, I know what sports shows are like. They're all about the sports. This one's not all about the sports. This one very much it builds the characters up more than I've ever seen from a character development standpoint for 3 seasons. It is unbelievable. And so I've just really enjoyed myself.
Speaking of sports, have you watched many of the 30 for 30s?
No, again, I'm pretty boring. I when it comes to historical stuff, I haven't reached that stage yet where I'm trying to reminisce on a variety of things that I've actually seen. And so I'm still trying to crack the code on things that I actually want to go watch. What are some 30 for 30s that you'd recommend?
Well, I highly recommend the Bad Boys one.
Okay.
Highly. That's probably the best one they ever did.
That one I think I've seen clips of that one.
Yeah.
But I will go watch the full thing.
And the
It's
one
good.
on the Fab Five is amazing.
I have seen clips of that one too. It's crazy that
Yeah.
you brought both of those up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not as out of touch as I thought I was. That's maybe.
You saying that you're out of touch, you're talking to me. What's
I
going
don't
on
know,
here?
man. Like you're giving me all the ideas for the streaming. Come on now. Uh,
Those are great. Those are
yeah.
both of those. And the one on This Magic Moment, the one about the 90s Orlando Magic with
Hmm.
Shaq and Penny is really good. Those are three basketball ones, but you like football. So, I mean, there's
Yeah. No, I do football as well. It was funny. I've been talking to Cody Rourke about the Broncos stuff, and I also was on the Let's Talk Broncos pod on this same YouTube channel. If you're there, so make sure to check out their videos too.
Mhm.
But like Bronco season is going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see what ultimately pans out there, but I'm not like I'm we'll just have to see. I'm not gonna be talked into Russell Wilson quite yet.
This is funny. Okay, this is Nuggets related.
Hmm.
When the Broncos won the Super Bowl in '98, I was
Yeah.
20, and it's weird. Once they won the Super Bowl, I emotionally disconnected from them.
Me too. Me too. That is exactly how it was. I was alive for the 97 and 98 Super Bowls, but like I was young and I don't remember them at all. So
Mhm.
like I was 1 and 2 years old.
Yeah.
So I basically the one that really connected for me was this one in 2016. Like the 2015 season happened February 2016. And I was in my freshman year of college. I remember this very vividly. I watched it in a dorm and I was a Broncos fan at that point. I was from Colorado in South Carolina. So a lot of people were like, hey, congratulations. I was like, thank you. This feels great. And then Peyton Manning retired, and then they were sticking everybody with Trevor Simeon and Brock Osweiler and all these horrible quarterbacks. And it just you lose all the fun when that happens. And so
Right.
I think kind of the same thing happened after Elway.
Oh yeah, no. After they won that Super Bowl, after they finally got to the mountaintop, it was like they were no longer priority in my life, and I was like able to watch games and just have not be emotionally invested in them at all. But the thing is, the Nuggets have been my number one my entire life,
Yeah.
and well, not my entire life, but most of my life, and I'm hoping that it doesn't do the same thing with on this one. Now that they won, I'm hoping to God, and that's why actually I'm encouraged by me being really pessimistic about their moves this offseason.
Means you're
because
right on track, Jeff.
because it's like, okay, I still care.
Yeah. Hey, fair. That makes sense. Like okay, you start to have these emotional reactions to stuff that they do. Like, okay, that's we
Right.
don't like that in Jeff's house, but that's okay.
No, no,
we
we
can work
don't.
past that. But
We
no,
don't
I
like
think
warm, fuzzy feelings.
yeah, I do think that if we're talking about the Nuggets here, like on this Nuggets podcast, um, I think probably important to remember that despite the fact that everybody thinks that Nikola Jokic is going to retire, he hasn't retired yet. We just don't know. Like we have all these projections of what we think is going to happen with him, what we think he's going to value, and then he grows up and he plays more, and then if he wins another championship or two, then like he just might love it. Like he might really enjoy what he's doing, and if that's the case, then like so stomach the media for another few years while he's just riding off into the sunset a little bit. But I don't know. I'm
Doing
curious,
front
like because
flips.
yeah, front flips off of a cliff. That's great. That's great. No, I mean we'll see. Like maybe he edges or he ages into Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan status. I think a lot of people don't think of him as that kind of long term veteran, but who knows? Could he play for 20 years? Absolutely, if he wanted to.
No, I mean, he could get to that point. He could be that guy, but he's a guy to me that seems like a person who is um, his priorities aren't in the United States.
Sure.
I guess is the best way.
Clearly, yeah.
And I think that sort of grounding will keep him away from the allure of extending beyond where he thinks he can be a productive player.
And maybe so. Maybe the moments he doesn't feel like he's the best player in the world anymore is like, okay, now I'm good. I'm done. That would be like, okay, now I'm losing ground in this battle. I don't feel the need to continue going. So he might have the greatest ride off into the sunset moments in NBA history where he wins the next 3 championships, but he feels like, yeah, I think I'm the second best player to Victor Wembanyama now. And I think it's time for me to go. If he retires after that, then more power to him. I don't think Nuggets fans would be too. I mean, they would be upset. Don't get me wrong, but like you ride off into the sunset like that, and they'll be okay.
Or Chet Holmgren apparently.
Oh, Chet Holmgren, yeah, that's a tall, skinny man right there.
It's 7-footers who are really skinny and like to dribble the ball.
Yeah, like, hey man, Bol, he should have worked out here.
Yes. Well, I would say yes, he should have, but I do. As we've seen now that he's been cut from Orlando, it's like
you got to do some crazy shit to be cut from Orlando.
Right.
Like
that's what I was thinking.
It's like that's hard. That's like hard to do if you're a talented basketball player right now. So right. I don't know, man. Shout out to Orlando. I know I'm probably not giving you enough credit, but anything else you want to cover before we get out of here?
No, I think I've rambled on long enough here for you, and it's
that's true.
I usually make you go like an hour and a half. So my edit button is getting a lot better than it used to be.
We're learning on the Pickaxe and Roll podcast. That's we're learning to cut Jeff off right when we have the opportunity to, just so that we can go to bed at a reasonable hour on this Friday night. But everybody, hey, thank you so much, everybody, for hopping in here. Really appreciate all the love. Jeff, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Be sure and check out CSG Podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I talk about the Nuggets right there. I do it 1, 2, 3 times a week, and then on the Gen X show where I talk about being old, all on your favorite podcasters, wherever you find them.
Being old, I don't know what that's like, but I'll still promo it anyway. Thank you so much, everybody, for hopping in. And thank you, Jeff, for visiting with me on this Friday night, taking time out of your July to talk about the Nuggets. I mean, what the hell? I really do appreciate it, though. It's always nice to reconnect with you, man. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate all the love and support. Make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button on the way out if you're listening. We will talk to you guys very soon.